Hello, I'm Andrew Hunt, and I did some game AI. Specifically, I did some influence maps in GameMaker, and I wanted to show that off. Specifically, the game I did this for was called SNIPERPUNK. It's a game I'm working on. Hopefully, will release in Steam soon, and I'll show you guys how that works. So here I got a little arena, and if I held Control, you'll see that I have this whole node system. So I actually built my own pathfinding system in GameMaker using nodes, and the nodes automatically configure themselves once I start up the room. So they configure themselves, build up a network. There's a few things that could probably be better, like there's a few double connecting nodes. Like this would probably not make a difference, but it's fine. It's fine. It works for now. The important thing to know is that I use A star for my pathfinding, and I specifically use interruptible pathfinding. So if A star happens to take a while, if there's a lot of nodes to process, it'll cut it off, save its open and closed lists, and continue it next frame it can. This is to save resources, so that way we can run more things in our game. So what I did was influence maps. So let me spawn in a player. So I spawn a player here, and then I spawn an AI here, and I'm going to immediately pause them because I want to show off what they're doing. I'm actually going to go over here and compromise this position and unpause them. There we go. The reason why I did that so that way the path is not there anymore. And yeah, these are influence maps. So you notice that there is a bunch of different colored nodes. Ignore the purple one. That's specifically for pathfinding. And I'm going to actually go over how this map system, this influence map system works. So influence maps are a way of showing off a map that is comprehensible to an AI. So that way the AI can determine, okay, here are some tactics that I can do in order to gain an upper hand. You can see these in RTSs sometimes, or more recently they have been in squad shooters. And it's usually to display to an AI weak points that they can exploit, so that way the AI seems smart. Because we all know that AI is pretty dumb, especially game AI, but it acts smart because it knows the advantage. It has the advantage of knowing the information that the player doesn't. So, not really any information that the player doesn't know here. So, except for maybe the terrain, might not be as obvious as first. So we'll start with the terrain nodes. Yellow on the sides. So on the sides over here, represent dangerous terrain. Now, I say dangerous, but it's not. It's like more disadvantageous terrain. And basically, it's saying, hey, if you can help it, try not to pathfind here. It's going to weigh a little extra in order to pathfind. That's all it's saying. It'll still select the node there. It'll still pathfind properly. But the reason why I mark those as weighing more is because these can get pretty rough when you're, since there's not a lot of exits. And this is a bullet hell. So I would shoot, but I can't really do that without letting go of the AI. You'll see it in a bit. But it's pretty. This is kind of a choke point, unlike the areas in the middle where there's a lot more like options to go into in case if you get under like heavy fire. So that's why I marked those as yellow influence. And then you'll notice that the orange and red nodes are there. The blue and white nodes, I should probably say this first. Those are fine. They are uninfluenced by anything. The red nodes are danger zones, so those are ones directly next to the player. What it does is it calculates, okay, this is the closest node. Let's spread out influence out by one connection each. So you can see that it'll go from a root node all the way out to till it reaches one connection each, and that's how we calculate our influence for that. Another thing that we have going on is the orange nodes, which are site nodes. Those are nodes that are influenced under what my player can see, and the AI will never pathfind to those. The goal of the AI is to always stay in defensive cover, so always try to pathfind where the player isn't seeing them, staying under cover. When the AI's cover is compromised, it'll shoot at the AI. The AI will shoot at the player as fast as it can, in order to kind of make the player kind of back off. We don't want the player to be aggressively chasing them, so it'll shoot at them. And if I play defensive, the AI is going to start shooting those phase rounds. So this character has an ability where they can shoot rounds to the walls. So that way it gets me to start moving again. Specifically, the type of influence map I used were flood mapping. So any influence caused by any like influencers. There's a lot of influence thrown into that sentence. So any influence is maxed out automatically. This worked. I found this to work better with the node system. I didn't quite see a reason to use drop off points, which is the limited radius effect, or the Gaussian blur, or a Gaussian convolution. Because like that stuff works better on grids, especially the Gaussian stuff. If you ever have done graphics programming, that should maybe sound familiar. But yeah, that's how my AI works, and I'll unpause it real quick and hold Alt, and you can see how it is actively interacting with my influence. So as I compromise its influence, I'm kind of getting shot up a lot. I change its pathfinding so that way it tries to pathfind to a different area. Each time I am in its visible range, it shoots at me. So I can engage with it for a little bit. You'll notice that the AI isn't the greatest at dodging things. That's because there's actually no code for having it dodge things. It's just trying to get away from the player. So it's the first pass. Continuing forward, I think I wanted to add in some behavior trees because making the code for decisions for this tech demo was a little bit messy. Not to mention, behavior trees would make more modular AIs and make it easier to make AI for other characters. On top of that, sorry, this is like really engaging. Let me pause it quick. Alright, all those bullets stopped at the same time. On top of that, I think I want to add in actual avoidance for bullets, so that way it's a little bit smarter in that regard. Because the whole idea of this game is all about, as you might have noticed, everything ricochets. So the idea is that, hey, if we're training with an AI, because most of the game's online, it's purely an online multiplayer experience. But if you're training with an AI, it should try to encourage you to ricochet bullets, because that's a whole name of the game. That's not really the name of the game, SNIPERPUNK, but you're going for that Wild Western Showdown fashion, ricochet off of all types of things, Rango style, So that's kind of the whole idea of trying to get it to play defensive, so that way the player has to play around with the other bullets. I'll play a little bit of a highlight real quick, but that's pretty much all I got to show. Thank you for watching.